Welcome back to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. Our mission is to share what we have learned from our experience and the experience of others to help you make more money investing like a pro. We want to teach you how to create wealth by investing in real estate the Discount Property Investor way. To jumpstart your real estate investing career, visit freewholesalecourse.com, the most complete free course on wholesaling real estate ever. Thanks for tuning in to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. Your host, Mike Slane. It is February 2021, and we are finally getting out of this little cold snap we're stuck in here in the Midwest, and I'm excited to see that snow melt. It has been good for driving for dollars, though, guys. I love getting out there and driving when it's snow is been sitting around for a week because it is easy to find those properties that somebody isn't living in. Today, we are lucky. We're joined with another Midwesterner. We've got Johnny here from HomeRoom. Johnny, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's really a privilege to be here. And it's good to have someone that's in our neck of the woods so they really understand how cold it has been.
Exactly. We're used to these winters in the Midwest occasionally, but man, it's just been not fun, you know? And
when it drops below -10, and I live in a basement, it does not stay very warm. So.
Right. Yeah, that gets cold, man. All right, so Johnny, tell me a little bit about yourself and about this homeroom idea. So I learned about it and was pretty intrigued. It's basically, it's co-living, right? So you're kind of, so describe that to me. Describe it to our audience and what that is and how that works.
Yeah, so co-living is essentially, as we like to say, is roommate living with luxury apartment amenities managed by a third-party company. So HomeRoom has 190 units or bedrooms in Kansas City and Texas. And what we we help, one of the biggest challenges in roommate living or shared living is finding roommates. So part of what we do is help match roommates to make sure that they're compatible. We also provide, yard care, maid service, and we do kind of online and offline social engagement. So community events like a luxury apartment building.
That's interesting. Okay, so is it, and you say it's rooms, and you may have said it, and I just wasn't paying close enough attention. Is it in single family houses, or are they in like more apartments, or is it both, or is it anything? What's the...
Yeah, so HomeRoom is specifically single family homes. Co-living is a more broad definition than that. There are companies that redo apartment buildings and do it in larger cities like New York and San Francisco, but HomeRoom is specifically single family homes.
Okay, awesome. That's very good. So then I think that's going to lead into my next thought on HomeRoom, which is, how do I sign up for HomeRoom, or what other markets are you getting into, or what are you looking for as your target? Are you looking for more houses to host people, or is it more tenants that you're looking for? What's your major thing, or is it both?
Yeah, so mostly looking for houses. We have, in 2020, we helped a lot of real estate investors buy houses, and what HomeRoom does is, we're one of the only companies that in the United States that offers this, is a turnkey property purchasing solution in which you can come to us with 50 grand or 100 grand if it's Austin, because Austin is crazy. And we'll help you find a property for co-living. We'll help you set it up. We'll do some remodeling if necessary, and then we'll manage it for you. And then we'll guarantee rent. So that's one of our core models, and we'll continue to do that forever. But what we're actually doing in 2021 is a little bit different. We're actually helping investors that already have properties or want to source their own properties do it with us. We're building essentially what's the Airbnb for co-living. So what you will be able to do is, if you have an investment property in a near a city or in any kind of relatively dense location, you can list your property on our platform. We'll provide you with roommate tenants. We'll also provide you with instructions on how to manage roommates, and then we'll resolve any roommate disputes. So what you will do is give the tenants and give you the framework, and your returns go up 30 to 40% using our model, which is awesome.
Wow, that's pretty slick. So, and that's what, man, I can't even imagine the disputes that some of the people get into. I figured that would be like property management headache on steroids when you're just trying to pair up people to live together, right? I mean, is that?
I mean, we're pretty good at it. The key is really the early stage screening. We do a pretty thorough screening. We do a video interview, and then the roommate's going to interview their future roommate via video call. So that helps make sure that everyone gets along going into the situation. So we really don't. I mean, we may have a serious roommate dispute once a quarter. So generally everyone gets along, and if there's issues, we have processes in place. We actually have a professional mediator that'll step in and have a conversation with everyone.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, again, I think sometimes, unfortunately, that probably, like you said, once a quarter, it's going to happen. But you've got what,
Sure.
130, you said, units?
190.
190. Yeah. So again, that's to be expected when you have that many people, sharing space. When we say roommates, I guess since we're talking about single family properties, we're really talking about, I mean, for the most part, somebody's going to have their own room though, right? I mean, each person gets their own room when they're sharing.
Yeah, we only do private bedrooms at this time.
Okay.
We are exploring allowing couples to live together. One of the challenges with roommate houses is, showers. You don't want to have too many people to a shower. You also want to make sure there's ample parking. So that's one of the reasons we are trying to figure out how to work with couples. But you just having that extra car and that extra person can be a little bit of a challenge.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny timing, man. I was watching, or I was actually showing my daughter YouTube videos. And one of the ads came up, and it was for, I think it was called Odd Couples. And again, you're probably more tuned into this than I am, but this is the first time I saw this. And it was called Odd Couples. And what it is they are saying they're matching elderly people with younger people. And the idea is like to live with them as roommates. And the idea is the younger person gets a really inexpensive place to live, and the older person gets someone to help with like daily tasks they can't always do, like if they can run to the grocery store and pick up groceries when they're shopping and stuff like that. So I just thought that's really interesting. And this your whole business is kind of basically that, except for not with the seniors and the young ones. It's just this co-living is an interesting concept. So I guess that leads to another question or thought that I have about HomeRoom is, do you have people who live in a house by themselves and then just say, hey, Johnny, can you help me get a tenant in one of my bedrooms? Something like that. Is that someone else interested in working with? Or?
Yeah, we have done that before, but it's frankly one of the challenges and that's like the house hack method option kind of, and we support house hackers. And one of the things that we're really excited about in our new model is that there are tens of thousands of house hackers out there that have bought houses for roommates. And then they're like, okay, now I'm kind of done house hacking. What do I do now? Do I kick everyone out? Do I move to a new place and try to manage this roommate house? There's not really a great roommate kind of management option or like a platform in which you can keep a roommate house going. And that's really what HomeRoom's here to do.
That is cool. So like, again, somebody like, again, and want to be a real estate investor, they start house hacking and they say, okay, I need to move out. But I got 4 people living here or 3 other people living here in the other bedrooms. What do I do? So you guys can step in and help them out. And
and I personally have tried to manage like a roommate house remotely when I moved out. I moved in with it, and it's a tricky thing to keep going successfully and keep the culture going. And so that's really, I mean, I built HomeRoom kind of for myself to do that with my roommate houses that I had created from house hacking. And so it's really sort of an option for people like myself or other people to use this as a tool to like transition into their own house without having to shut down their roommate house. Because a lot of times the financials of the house hack were around having roommates. You already have furniture there that's perfect for roommates, all that stuff. So, and we don't typically help people find roommate specific. We're not really exactly a roommate matching service.
Right.
We find that, there's the ecosystem of a roommate house is something that's, it's better when it's thought up holistically versus just trying to match roommates, and so we like to have the house review the setup of the house and make sure that the space works before putting the people in. And so when you just do a roommate match, it's not as holistic and complete as that.
Yeah, that is also something, again, I just have never thought about in the real estate space. I mean, in my world anyways, I've always seen some of the the lower end properties where they'll have just subletting room by room, but this is definitely not that case. I mean, it's nicer. I mean, I'm assuming here you got decent properties in pretty decent areas. If you're talking about Kansas City, I'm assuming more of the suburban side of it more so than the city center. Same thing with you said it was Austin. Is that right? The second location?
Austin and Dallas.
Austin, Dallas. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, we're all over Dallas. In Kansas City, we do try to stay in areas that are nicer that young professionals would want to live in. So that's sort of really our target market. I think with the platform, we're going to be a little bit more open to, if houses are not in the most ideal location and someone's like wants to use our platform, then that's okay because it'll be their house sort of drawn. But for today, we're in a very nice areas, typically BB plus areas, Overland Park, Prairie Village, stuff like that.
So, okay, cool. And so you say your platform. Describe that again just for me, because again I'm trying to understand. It's
sure.
Again, I know the concept now, and you mentioned the services that you offer, but I mean, kind of go into that a little bit more for me. So we've got a property, it's in not as nice of an area, but you're willing to do what for it though? I mean, again, are you just describe it again if you could?
Yeah, so the new platform that we're working on is essentially Airbnb for co-living properties. So just like Airbnb, if you own a property, and you're like, this could be really nice for a vacation rental based on location or some other thing. You can list your property as a host on Airbnb, and then Airbnb will provide the framework in which short-term stayers and guests will come and book your property. Very similar to that. So with HomeRoom, you'd find a house and you're like, well, it has a lot of bedrooms. It seems like a place that young people would want to live. This is great, but I don't know how to do a roommate house. It just doesn't make sense to me. So you'd list it on our platform, just like Airbnb, and become a host. We would give you guidelines on how to set up the property, and typically it would require some light furnishing, maybe a TV. Nothing as extensive as a short-term rental, but just the basics, right? So some roommates can move in. It's hard for roommates to get their own furniture, and you don't really want them to, because they usually will find the cheapest thing, and they don't have a truck, and it's a mess. So we have guidelines for you if you want to be a host for a co-living property, and then we'll fill it up with young professional tenants, and then you'll be all set. And typically, in some cases, rent has gone up 100% versus what it would rent on a typical open market. But it's all over the board from 50 to 100% increase in rental income.
On the furniture thing, because like an Airbnb, and I'm just going to compare and contrast because that is my familiarity, at least in this at all. With an Airbnb, you have to do full furnishing, and on this one, you said kind of light furnishing, like a TV and a couch. What about in the bedroom itself? Are you putting in a dresser and a bed? Or are bringing?
That's not something that we actually at HomeRoom don't furnish the bedrooms. We do have an option within the guest facing side in which they can request a room be furnished, and then we'll have the furniture that will increase the price of the room. We'll have a professional furnishing company bring the furniture and then remove it after they move out. But we prefer to have folks that are going to stay a bit longer, and people that want to stay longer want to bring their own furniture. So that's sort of our model.
Exactly. Again, so yeah, Airbnb short term, they're not bringing furniture with them, but again, somebody who's staying 6 months or 12 months, is going to be a little bit longer. So, what are the lease terms then for the tenants? I mean, they're not really guests; they're basically tenants at this point. I mean, do you have 12-month leases, or how do you guys manage that?
Yeah, our default is sort of a 12-month lease that automatically renews if they don't have to do anything to keep living there. You can go down to 3 months, and that's no problem, but typically the price goes up. So anytime you're kind of adding more churn and more vacancy risk, then you have to pay a little bit more for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, again, as an owner of a house, I'd want that, or I think most tenants would expect that as well. Hotels are way more expensive than renting a house for a month. So
totally. Yeah, and our average stay ends up being between 12 and 13 months. And our goal, honestly, is to get that even longer. So it's not. We are seeing a lot of changes in terms of young adult living patterns. They're staying places they're moving around more, and more of them are not living in studio apartments. Young adults, and that's a kind of a general classification, but 20 to 30-ish. Only 1 in 5 of them are living alone today. 52% of them are living with their parents, which is because probably of the COVID and the economy. And 26% of them are living with roommates. So what we're finding is kind of like this is this sort of living model, which is where it's more flexible, it's more common, and you don't quite have to bring as much stuff, is becoming more and more popular with people in this age range. Now we think over time, this living kind of pattern and kind of more migrant, less, you don't have to furnish, you don't, when you move, it's easier. I think that's going to become more and more kind of widespread throughout all of residential real estate. So
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you, and I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head, and that is another topic, I guess, would be is how has COVID affected, homeroom? I mean, I think that some people would be very, very hesitant to do the co-living, given all the hoopla about COVID. I mean, maybe not in your target age group though. Again, since it's younger people, they may not have as much fear with that. So, is there any, or have you had many issues with that, or?
yeah, you don't hear the term hoopla every day, so I like that.
Yeah,
By the
there
way,
you go.
um, so we were sort of in a good phase. We were set up in a good spot for COVID. We slowed our expansion down. We were adding, a couple houses a month, and we slowed it down to just adding one every other month. And we dropped our vacancy to about zero. We found that no one wanted to leave, and we had some people that still wanted to come. So the demand was still pretty strong based on the amount of inventory we had. And so it wasn't really an issue. We have a pretty firm COVID protocol. But because the average age at HomeRoom is 27, I think that lowered the stress tremendously.
Right.
If we were doing roommate houses for folks that are retired, that would be different. It would be, I don't know, my stress personally would have been much, much higher. So,
Well, yeah, so kind of like that one that I saw the commercial for, like odd couples or whatever it's called. If you're matching a 20-something with a senior, I mean, shoot, the senior has every reason to be scared, whereas the 20-something's got to go to work and stuff like that. So
it's like that. It's a tough combination in 2020 for sure.
Yeah,
it sounds like a fun game show in maybe 2022.
Or a reality show or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty good, comedy gold in there, but
for sure.
Yeah, not something I necessarily would want to do. So how does HomeRoom, or how does your platform help an investor like me? And again, not necessarily like me because I'm not in Kansas City, but again, when you get to St. Louis, I know I'll be having to reach out to you guys because our Airbnbs are doing well, but we always like to keep the model, growing and diversified. So how does someone like me get set up, and how do we take advantage of your services so that we can kind of manage it more like our normal stuff, which is, we think about it once a year, or less.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and our platform will more or less allow that. So, I mean, when we get to St. Louis, you have a couple options with us. And, since you are driving for dollars, I know which one you'd probably take. But one is we'll have a local partner real estate agent that will actually look on the MLS and off market to find properties that match exactly what we're looking for. It means that, above 2,000 square feet, typically two full bathrooms at least, a good amount of parking. We typically tend to avoid HOA neighborhoods. And if you do short-term rentals, I'm sure you do too. Yep. So we can help you enter the co-living market by buying a property specifically for that purpose. That's option one. Option two is if you already have a property, and if you have you have an Airbnb and you're like, it's not performing as well, or I'd like a more stable investment. Co-living is a lot more consistent than Airbnb would be. Then the conversion is pretty simple. Since you would probably already have pictures of a furnished property, you would just go onto our platform like Airbnb and list it, right? And so we have professional leasing agents that are even more full service than Airbnb that are actually actively filling houses with these roommates, setting up interviews between the roommates, making sure they get along. And then depending on if you'd like us to do the full property management, in which we actually would do all the maintenance for you, and we would do all the utility setup and all that stuff, or if you want to manage that, we have two different price tiers for that, depending on how active you want to be.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, you guys will do basically full service property management, it sounds like, or work with owners who want to still have their finger or pulse on the property as well. So that's very, very
cool. Yeah. I mean, with Airbnb, you've got services like Vacasa, where they'll do the property management for you. and they'll take a cut. And so we're sort of our company is integrated in the sense that we are Airbnb with Vacasa in one, in a sense, that we will do the full service management if you like, but if you don't, that's fine with us too. And we'll let you do that. So.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, our preference, we try to get as passive as possible, even though passive income isn't truly a real thing. I mean, again, you're in real estate, you know the truth. There is passive income taxed differently, but it doesn't always mean it's passive, right?
Correct.
Cool. Well, Johnny, I loved having you on and learn a little bit more about HomeRoom. I'm going to send people to your website. I'll put a link below as well in the show notes and below this. But if they're looking for more info on HomeRoom, where do they go? Is it just the website?
Yeah, livehomeroom.com. You can Dash Invest is where our investors can go to learn more about our products. You can always reach me personally at johnny@livehomeroom.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions there. But yeah, our website has got 24/7 chat support, so you can go on there and ask us questions. We're happy to help.
Awesome, man. Well, before we wrap up, though, I did want to see if you had any interesting stories about having so many different roommates. I saw here it says from having 132 roommates. So is that you personally, or is that
That's HomeRoom?
HomeRoom. Gotcha. Yeah. So tell me something crazy that's come about. Obviously, no names or too many details.
Sure. Yeah. So we had actually an older gentleman who lived at one of our houses, and he had collapsed in his backyard. And so I think there's like some really cool value behind having young people in some of these aging neighborhoods, because there's just no one, like to have, you want, like, kind of like the show you were talking about, you kind of want to pair age demographics together versus having them all clustered in homogeneous groups. So the roommate actually ended up calling the 911 and saved the guy's life. So that was pretty cool. It was like a proud HomeRoom moment. Yeah, for sure. We've definitely had a number of times where items have been stolen from the fridge. So and stuff like that. And we've had little inter-roommate conflicts and all that. But it's kind of a cool hero story where the roommate saw the guy crumple down on the grass and saved his life. So it was awesome. Definitely been a couple times where we had people in COVID, and we had roommates giving them soup through the door because they were quarantined in their room, which was hard. But it's better than being alone. I think in 2020 is having roommates that would do that. So yeah,
very cool, man. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for joining me. Any other things you want to say? Feel free to say it. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up. And I will definitely have to reach out to you guys again. Maybe even start looking in Kansas City to expand our little portfolio. So
awesome, man! We'd love to work with you at any time. Feel free to reach out. It was really nice talking to you.
Same, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. To jumpstart your real estate investing career, visit freewholesalecourse.com, the most complete free course on wholesaling real estate ever. We would also appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thank you in advance for your support. And remember, you make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell. Now let's go build some wealth.